about 4, maybe 5 years ago now, I was down there by the reservoir early morning walking with Molly, and I got a feeling, and I'd had this feeling before, so I knew exactly what was coming on. And I'd had this feeling for a few hours before, because heart attacks don't happen like they do on the television. You don't grab your chest and fall over. Everyone's is a bit different. Mine are like indigestion to begin with, and then the pain grows, and I can feel it 24 hours before, and I had this uncomfortable feeling, but I think I kind of just hoped that it wasn't what it was. Anyway, it was. And I fell over onto my hands and knees down there in those leaves. There was no one about. And I made my way up this bank, and I thought I was going, and I was going to reach this bench over there, and I was going to phone someone, a friend of mine, tell them where I was and tell them to look after Molly, because I didn't think I was going to get home. Anyway, there's a car park just up there, another 100 yards, and I'd parked there, so I managed to get in the car. And I managed to drive somehow back to her house. And she phoned the ambulance, and the ambulance came quite quickly actually. Confirmed it was a heart attack, took me to hospital, and I spent a week in hospital. But this wasn't the first heart attack I'd had 2 already. I had one about 15 years before, and the doctor told me it was indigestion. So I went home, I drank loads of Gaviscon, and then at exactly the same time, at 3 o'clock in the morning, 7 days later, I had another, and it was massive. I started off with acid reflux, acid coming up, so much so that it's burnt all the membrane on my throat, so I struggle now, and quite often I will swallow things into my lung, which is not good. But I then, because I thought it was indigestion, I stood on the boat, which I was living on, and thumped the kitchen units for 3 hours. And then I got in the car and I drove to the local hospital, and it was funny really, because I was doing about 20 miles an hour and I couldn't make myself go any faster. Got to the hospital and said to them, I think I've got indigestion, can you give me something until I can get to the doctor in the morning? Anyway, they tested me and what have you, and they got my family in, because they didn't think I was going to make it, because it was such a huge heart attack. Anyway, I did make it. And I had a bypass eventually, but because I'd messed about for so long, my whole heart was scar tissue, and nobody would do anything. Well, they said, we can't do anything. In fact, it got to the point where I was being shipped round hospitals in the northwest. In fact, one ambulance man, when they picked me up from hospital to take me to another hospital to see if they could do anything, said, oh, are you the man who's doing the tour of the northwest hospitals? I said, yeah, that's me. Anyway, it even went to a point where I was supposed to be having a bypass, and they come in and they shave you, like top half of your body. And a nurse came in one side of this curtain, and as she came in one side of this curtain to shave me, this woman poked her head round the other corner and said, there's nothing we can do for you, you might as well go home. And they just threw me out, and I sat in a corridor for 5 hours until my cousin could come and pick me up. And this went on, and I spent the next couple of months lying on the boat floor, sleeping and being sick and slowly dying. And my brother actually kicked up a right fuss, because he's very good at kicking up a right fuss. And then I got a phone call, and I can't remember this bloke's name, and I wish I could, because I owe him my life. And it was from Manchester Royal Hospital, and he just said, this is the place and I'm the man. And they took me in and they sorted me out. And then it was 10 years later, I had another heart attack. Now, they did give me 5 years when I'd had my bypass, because I've got chronic heart failure. And they said, there's nothing we can do, your heart's failing, which it is. It's got about 5 years. Anyway, I went to my GP, and everybody was like agreeing with it. And I went to my GP, who actually knows me personally, and he just shook his head and smiled at me as if to say, I think we both know that's rubbish. But yeah, my heart is slowing down to a stop. I had tests about 2 years ago now, a year ago, and where they pump adrenaline into your heart to make it beat fast to see how it copes with exercise. And it should go ba 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 ba, and mine went ba 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 blah, 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 and it won't, half of it's shut down, it won't work basically. So half of it's working, half of it's not. And they keep me going with drugs. And I know that one day I will get this feeling again. And I think if I get this feeling again, the great thing about that is that it's a warning. So if I'm at home, at least I can phone, there's somebody out who I can phone who knows all about this, what's going to happen. I can phone and say, look, this is happening, front door's open, Molly's got food in the cupboard, right, can you take her? And thank you very much, because that's all I'm bothered about, and it's nice knowing you, kind of thing. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. And I can't make it bother me. When I got cancer, everyone was upset except me. I can't make these things worry me. And I think I know the reason for this. Now, this isn't about me, because I know these things, these two things in particular, heart attacks and cancer. I think it's like 50% of people will get cancer. 30% of people will have heart problems. The figures might not be exact, but you get me drift. It happens to a lot of people. So this isn't just, it's not about me. This is about everybody out there. Even if you're not going to have an heart attack, even if you're not going to get cancer, there's certain ways that I've run my life that I think have led to my actually getting through this, my longevity, my enjoyment of life, and my dismissal of the things in life that can actually sit on your shoulders like a gremlin and spoil your future, become an obsession, keep you indoors, keep you away from society, keep you frightened, keep you cowed, and there's no need for it, and it doesn't have to happen. And no matter what you are, I'm not belittling anybody's illnesses, but for the general run-of-the-mill heart attack, you can see the world, and you can appreciate the world, and you can appreciate time you've got left a little more, if not completely, if you just kind of follow a couple of lifestyle rules, ones that I have. It sounds like I'm preaching, and I'm probably get people in the comments saying you don't know what you're talking about, but actually I do know what I'm talking about. This suits me, and like I've always said, you do you. I'm only talking about my experiences, and if somebody can glean a little bit of help, of knowledge, of comfort, change the lifestyle a little bit, and that little lifestyle change leads to a better life, then that's fine. My work here is done. My reason for talking into this camera, that's done. That's all I'm here for. And to enjoy life with my little dog, who's loving it this morning because she had her haircut yesterday, and she always loves having her. Well, she don't love having her haircut, but she loves the feeling of freedom afterwards, so she's bouncing along. And it's a beautiful morning. It's another autumn morning, and it's very still again. We had a bit of wind and a bit of low pressure, but now it's lifted and it's still. In fact, it's stiller now than I've experienced it for a while. There's nothing moving at all. Leaves are just falling one by one. I'm just watching them now. And it's just so still and beautiful. And when it's still and beautiful and nothing's moving, you can actually look round like you're looking at a painting and appreciate things without that thing actually changing all the time. You can look at something and it's stationary, so you can appreciate it as it is, like a picture, without a wing coming up and it's suddenly changing into a different image. Of course, a healthy lifestyle helps. Healthy diet, getting as much exercise as you can, even in my position, getting as much exercise as you can. Not drinking too many liver crippling draughts of alcohol, and looking after you. And I don't want to say mental health, because I think that's used as a crutch now, as a get out too often for basic antisocial behaviour. And I find it's just a lazy diagnosis for just being a bad person. Of course, there's lots of mental health issues. We should concentrate on mental health, and we should also concentrate on antisocial behaviour, and we shouldn't put them in the same pot, because that belittles anyone who's suffering with mental health issues. And I know people. My dad had more or less a breakdown before he passed away 50 years ago. He tried to take his own life when there were only him and me in the house. The pressure got to him. That was a mental health issue. But just picking up a knife and stabbing somebody just because you're angry at the world, that's because you're angry at the world. Think Buddhism. Then if you don't want to go down that road, just pare away the religious doctrines and overtones until all you're left with is tranquility. And then go with that. Think meditation, but if you don't want to go down that hippie road, pare away all that hippiness until all you're left with is tranquility. I don't know where I'd be without meditation. I've been meditating for years and I get a lot out of it, and it's kind of an important part of my daily routine. But so can just sitting in a chair, in the quiet, with everything turned off, just for 20 minutes, quarter of an hour, however long it takes, and just letting your heart rate drop, letting your muscles relax, letting your mind wander, let it relax. You're almost there. It's almost meditation. And I guarantee you will reap the benefits. When you think about all these sects and groups, and I'm not talking about cults here, I'm talking about there's lots of groups that have joined little communes and live outside norm. They live outside the population, civilization, not so much civilization, but they live on their own in isolated communities. And they're just people like us. They're just people like us who've been looking for a bit of peace in our lives, a bit of peace in nature, where you can actually come and be in nature, rather than searching for your nirvana in spending, in consumerism. Once you start appreciating nature in all its beauty and majesty, that becomes that thing. That becomes your consumerism. You're consuming nature. And this is it. This is fantastic. But like I say, all those people who are living in communes, they're just like you and me. What they've done is looked for that tranquility and that peace of mind and that peace, and they've found it. But once they've found it, they picked it up and continued running with it. But you don't have to do that. Once you've found it, you can just sit with it for the rest of your life. Peace, tranquility, nature, it's helped me. I am convinced that but for my lifestyle, I would not be here. I'm absolutely convinced of it. Stress would have got to me, the stress would have got to my heart, and I think one of the things that's keeping me here is that my heart is still beating because the rest of my being is running so slowly and putting it under as little stress as possible. Living a slow, peaceful, quiet life makes you live longer. What more could you ask for? We shall see you on the flip. Peace and love.